There's one thing that when we talk about fishing line and how we select it that I think gets the most overlooked, and that's line diameter size, especially when we're talking about bait casting applications and heavier lines. You hear us talk about it when we're finesse presentations, making those more natural presentations and highly pressured fisheries. The same principles apply when I'm selecting my line for heavier line sizes, moving bait applications especially. And I'm going to explain something to you guys, and I actually learned this while I was over there in Japan because a lot of their fisheries are way more heavily pressured. And as our lakes become more pressured, I think this is going to start to come into play. And I'm going to use this little crankbait. So this is the Rapala BX Brat. It's actually a pretty narrow wobbling crankbait, but there's something you have to keep in mind. As this crankbait is moving back and forth, right? It's kicking back and forth. That is also getting transitioned or transferred up your line. And what happens a lot of times is a fish is following or tracking that bait, and there's water movement or hydrodynamics that come off of this bait. That creates the action in the bait, but it also is what fish use a lot of times to detect whether they want to bite something or not, whether it feels real to those fish. And so as this crankbait is deflecting, your line is also moving side to side. And that disturbs the water, or it displaces the water when those fish are tracking it. And so it's important to select your line because of that diameter size to counterbalance that. So your lighter lines, your 15, 12 pound tests, something like an Invisex that's extremely strong, but a lower diameter line is really gonna make a big difference in those types of situations. And it's also gonna help your bait dive deeper. The opposite also holds true. A lot of times when I want my bait to have maybe a little bit less action, or I want that bait to sit higher up in the water column. Say I'm fishing a shallow grass flat, for instance, and I want this bait to, instead of diving 4 foot, I want it to only dive 3 foot. Well, I'll just step it up to a 20 pound Seaguar Invisex, and then that will help keep that bait riding up higher in the water column. It's gonna keep it in front of those fish's face, and still 20 pound test, but have a smaller diameter. So selecting the right quality of line, but then also selecting the right pound test to make sure your bait is riding in the correct depth zone. That in return is going to get you more bites.